I'm here with 2006 Wheaton alumna Liesel Mindrebo Mertes, who also was a student in a class of mine once, and now she is a guest here on campus for a couple of CACE events. So Liesel, tell us how you got from where you were in 2006 to the work that you were doing now.
I was a wide-eyed political science major who did get to take some of Dr. Baco's classes. And if you would have asked me at that time what I would have expected to come back and be talking about, it probably would have had to do with international political economy. And so coming back to talk about making meaning after loss and how we cultivate empathy and connection was not on my radar screen. It came to me through my own experience with disruptive life events. I was in an MBA program. We had returned from doing development work in Kenya, and I thought, I feel like knowing how money works would be helpful. I'm gonna do an MBA. And I gave birth to our third child, a little girl named Mercy Joan, who actually only lived for 8 days before we buried her in 2011. That's so many things in our life story. It was also, in the midst of living through that difficulty, a reflection of how I actually needed a lot of support from people. I was not just on to the next thing, and how some people did that well. Some people had no idea how poorly they did it. And really thinking about, as we look at managers, as we look at workplaces, this whole degree program that's all about that, and realizing what a gap there was in study, how we weren't talking about how you manage people through disruptive life events, their own or yours. So that was the seed of an idea that became Handle with Care Consulting 5 years ago. There's some other things that maybe we'll get into. My youngest has had to have a number of open heart surgeries as well, so that was another stepping into disruption. But everybody has their own disruptive life events that maybe even you watching is coming to mind, the things that we've weathered.
Right. So what are some of the, I guess, surprising things that you've discovered in this work?
Well, one of it is the framing. So many times we talk about human-centric skills, not soft skills, human-centric skills. We almost think of them as personality traits, like maybe you're really good, I'm terrible, that's just the way it is, instead of seeing them as skill-based competencies. So one of the most pleasant surprises is, regardless, and I work across a wide range of industries, when we can break down what seems amorphous and intangible, how do I care for people, into skills-based competencies that we can get better at. Then to see people who came into a session or thought of themselves beforehand of just saying, I'm not good with people, I'm not good in these situations, don't expect that of me, demystifying the process of giving care. So I love seeing that. The use case has only accelerated since the pandemic. So seeing just the range of industries that really this is useful within. And it takes me again and again as a person of faith into the heart of God and the work of Jesus, as the incarnation is the most radically empathetic, human-centric work in all of history.
Let me follow up on that part. So if someone says, I think I have an idea what you mean about Jesus being empathetic, but what's another way of thinking about, our Christology and empathy that perhaps people aren't thinking about?
Well, you can see it in some of the, if you look at historical theology, some of the even early debates of the church. Was Jesus just taking on humanity? Was he really embodying it? Was it just something, how do our bodies matter? And there are a couple of strengths. One, there is the incarnation, that Jesus really was fully human, that even the works that he did, works of miracles and power and healing, were out of his humanity that was linked to the Spirit, and therefore they offer a path, like we too can connect with others, can be bringers of a new kingdom coming as we in our humanness connect with God. And even just the basic, like he hungered, he thirsted. Jesus weeps not in some sort of performative act when he's about to raise Lazarus, but because he feels those feelings. Even the wrestling in Gethsemane is Jesus as anxious, Jesus as overwhelmed, Jesus as showing us a path to live fully in those feelings and still bring them before God, which is a culmination of some of the beauty we see in the Psalms also, of just a full range of emotions and experience, and saying there is a faithfulness, not of bypassing that and pretending it's not there, but of having God inhabit that in our own stories and in God's own story.
Do you think that sometimes people don't feel like they have the permission, or maybe they haven't been shown the way to have that sort of full experience of humanness?
Yes, I do. There's a way that we can talk, depending on some of your Christian subcultures, which bypasses that or leans so heavily on how we conceptualize of the will of God. You know, like, well, this was just God's will, and therefore we just submit to it, and or of baptizing our experience with platitudes of like, well, you know, God will bring the next thing along the way, and we leapfrog like the actual wrestling and journey. And then just on a lived experience, I talk with people about what they have in their empathy toolkit. They're the default responses that we reach for in response to our pain or other people's, and lots of that is predicated on personality, but also what's been patterned for you.
Right.
And we are a optimistic, forward-thinking culture. We've lost even cultural touchstones with grief. And so if early on in life, you know, people just tell you like, big boys don't cry, you know, because they don't cry, you find yourself thinking, well, that's what's been said to me, and that's what you say to someone who goes through things like that. So it's potentially a deep dive into, oh, how have I been conditioned by family of origin, by culture, by experience, and saying, do those tools serve me the way I want them to, and if not, what are better tools to put in my toolkit?
Right. And even arguably, what price are people paying if they're not even wanting to access tools like that, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Well, and we're seeing, even in the world of business, like, it's not that things are valuable only because there are price tags attached, but you can see just the fall of leaders. As we're recording this, there have been a number of different layoffs, tech sector, but even in the midst of, there was a big tech like informed company in 2021 that laid off like 30% of their workforce via email, and also the comments of the CEO, which were really like, these people are just dead weight anyway, like, we're going to be so much more, very tone deaf to the empathy of the moment, and the shareholder backlash and the demands for change. Like, there's both the human, emotional, spiritual imperative, but also if we're just talking numbers, there's a numbers imperative in why we grow in this, because he lost his position. And especially as we're moving, leaders who can tap into this and usher their people into it will really be the ones attracting and retaining people.
I see. So last question.
Yeah.
So here we are, Wheaton College, an evangelical institution. You may be aware that, you know, the term evangelical, there are lots of different ways that people think about what they mean. When you think about a hopeful trajectory or a vision that you would like to see moving forward in terms of what Christians can bring to the kind of work that you're talking about, whether it's in the church or outside, what is something you would like to see or hope for?
Well, even that word evangelical, are we hopeful bringers of the good news of Jesus? And something that I would, whether we say the evangelical world or Wheaton in particular, what I would like to see American Christians in our given moment live into is the value and importance of the individual person that is behind. You know, we have movements, we have the people in that group, what they are, but I've seen in our daily lives, because we can consume the news, we can think about those people, we can think about the meta level, but they're made up of people that we interact with. And so to be able to approach the person, you can be empathetic with somebody without agreeing with them. And you can have a way of acknowledging their lived experience. One of my favorite phrases that I use is, tell me more. Tell me more about that. It is so rare that we actually have a chance to listen. And oftentimes when someone is telling you more, you find out, oh, maybe they're not as crazy as I thought they were. Maybe they are, but maybe it comes from this place in their story. And also partnering with that, people can feel like, if I'm going to be empathetic, I'm going to lose. It's going to be a zero-sum game. Like, I'm not going to be changing their mind that is soft. and also of the reality that has always been the way of the people of God. We don't actually change or do anything. Like, God changes things. And as we are in tune with the Spirit of God in how we interact with, how we show care, how we come towards other people, that's unleashing His plan being able to work, and we can let go of outcomes a little bit more and be attuned in the present, which is what empathy and connection is all about. And isn't it great because we have the Spirit of God who is always hovering over us, loving us that way, so we can give it out to other people.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
So glad you're able to be here
Yeah.
with us.
Thank you for having me.